No idea if I'm going to be in frame for that or not.
All right, so who among you has thought about the moon today? Is it like a daily part of your life? Do you get excited about it? Did anybody see it last night? Does anybody know that upcoming we have a lunar eclipse on the 7th of November? It's kind of hard to get away from, like it's there every day. Sometimes it's up in the sky during the daytime. I really love that. Point being, this is something that we're all familiar with, and like it impacts all of our lives. The moon is very significant to our culture, our history, the way that we understand the world around us. It's also important to our scientific history and our scientific future, and maybe most importantly is sort of a crucial element about like how we even have life on the planet at all. There's a lot that the moon does for us. It's essential to our survival here on this rock in space. So the first thing I want to talk about is like some symbolism about the moon. There's a lot of things that we associate with the moon that we pretty much in common across most cultures around the world tend to identify with the moon, like nighttime, which sort of makes sense. But then there's this like particularly in Western society, like the moon can be related to your emotions. I don't know if any of you know like what your moon sign is astrologically, but it's definitely a thing that we think about that way. The moon is also sort of universally associated with feminine things and feminine energy, and in contrast to the sun, it's like a giant, constantly exploding nuclear chauvinistic excellence. The moon is like quiet and reflective and nurturing, and so it does seem fairly feminine to me. Also, the metal silver sort of makes sense. It's kind of silvery in the sky. The moon's not really very shiny. It's kind of like about as bright as like Asian asphalt, but when the sun hits it, it lights up real nice. The moon is also associated with timekeeping. If you look at the word month, it's basically moon. And our word for month does come from the moon, and the fact that we sort of keep track of the passage of time by the easily visible cycles of the moon. Each of the 7 days of the week has a correspondence to the 7 classically known planets, counting the sun as a planet. And today happens to be Moon Day. So even if you haven't thought about the moon today, it is definitely a part of your Monday. Unfortunately, I cannot stand up here and tell you that people actually go crazy under the full moon, or that everybody pops their baby out when the moon is full. My first quote here is a 2008 article by Foster and Rosenberg in Current Biology, and they say, though there is a strong belief by many that the moon has marked effects on our health and well-being, study after study has failed to find any consistent association with the moon and human pathology, physiology, or behavior. Occasional reports have proposed correlations, but nothing has been sufficiently replicated to prove a causal relationship. A lot of us maybe have friends in healthcare or law enforcement that would argue with this, and I myself sort of tend to think, wow, people are a little crazy. Oh, okay, it must be because the moon is almost full. But humans are really good at confirmation bias, so we kind of got to take that away from that. So as important as the moon has been historically to human culture, everybody sees it up in the sky. We all know that it's there. How crazy must it have been to watch people walk on the moon for the first time? We've all kind of grown up with, oh, that was the thing they did. That's still mind-blowing to me. We first went to the moon in 1969, and then for the next several years we kept sending people to the moon. In total, 24 people we sent out to be with the moon, and 12 of them went down to step foot on the lunar surface. It's kind of become increasingly more in vogue lately to question that we went to the moon at all. And I have a lot of appreciation for like asking bold questions about just the way I understand reality not accurate, but I'm really pretty sure that we went to the moon, and most everyone is pretty sure that we went to the moon. If we didn't actually go to the moon and faked it, I think that all of the people watching around the world would have noticed and said something. The Russians were definitely paying attention to us and would have called BS had they the opportunity. We're going back to the moon. The Artemis mission, the first missions was Apollo, and our return is Artemis, and Artemis and Apollo were brother and sister. You guys didn't know that, so it sort of makes sense. Straight from the NASA blog on October 12th, the current launch attempt is planned for Monday, November 14th. Would last 25 and a half days with a splashdown in the Pacific Ocean on Friday, December 9th. And the plan for that is just like a initial unmanned launch of this rocket, and they're going to orbit the moon with it and come back, and no astronauts, make sure everything goes well. Sounds nice, but it kind of keeps getting pushed back, and it's also hilariously over budget and behind schedule, which is fairly similar to the first moon missions, so maybe it'll work out for us. As far as the future going forward, like a lot of hype about let's colonize Mars. We are absolutely going to be going to the moon and setting up shop there first. The fact that it's really nearby and has a gravity that's way easier to escape than Earth's means that it's going to be really useful to us if we actually become a spacefaring civilization. You'll probably leave vis-a-vis the moon anywhere that you might go from Earth. Kind of like we fly to Charlotte or something first before going anywhere far across the country. So now that we're all thinking about like stuff in space, I want to talk about how the moon was formed a little bit and sort of some planetary dynamics that we have with the moon that are kind of unique and special. So how the moon was made is still a little bit like we're not 100% on that. The most widely accepted current theory is that some billions of years ago, this Mars-sized object that they've named Theia, who's the mother of Selene, who is the moon goddess in Greek mythology. So this rock that we've named after the mother of the moon hit the Earth, and they both sort of became molten for a while and then spun back apart from each other. And this explains some things about the moon, such that like its geologic composition is very similar to Earth, but not exactly the same. And that similarity it's like almost impossible that they weren't at some point part of the same rock. So the moon is made of the same stuff that the Earth is in large portion. It also kind of explains how the moon ended up where it is. Its orbit is a little bit, like its orbit and its size are a little bit unique for planets. The moon is the largest planetary body in the solar system, like the largest satellite relative to its planet. It's the 5th largest moon in the solar system, but no other planet has a moon as big relative to its own size as we do. Earth doesn't win many superlatives in the solar system, but we can talk about it. It's also probable and really important that the moon being so close and kind of having this constant push-pull effect with us is a big part of why we have like a molten core and an active magnetic field. And if we didn't have that active magnetism around our planet, we'd look like Mars. The last thing I want to talk about its orbit and stuff is the moon is tidally locked with the Earth, which doesn't actually have anything to do with our tides, but will kind of lead us into talking about the tides. And that means just that the same face of the moon is always pointing to us as it goes around. So we're always looking at the same part of the moon. So we have this idea of like, oh, there's the dark side of the moon. Nowadays, I guess we say like the near side and the far side, because the far side of the moon sees as much sunlight as the near side, so it's not really fair to call it the dark side. So tidal lock, tidal lock just refers to the fact that the same face of the moon is always facing us, which is like, interesting and neat. My favorite thing about all of this is that the moon is the right size and distance from Earth such that it's the same size in the sky as the sun, which which is like such a remarkably phenomenal coincidence, and we don't see that anywhere else in the solar system, really. Jupiter has one of its moons that sort of is the same size in its sky as the sun. It has like 38 moons or something, so one of them had to fit. And I just love that, like we get this perfect solar eclipse. Like we wouldn't have eclipses if the moon was a little bit closer or a little bit further away or a little bit bigger. It would look entirely different. There'd be a halo of sun around the moon. Stuff like that, really. It's like, this is cool. So tides. Everybody sort of knows nowadays that, like, okay, tides are influenced by the moon, and it's a little bit not that complicated. This fella in a National Geographic article from 2019, his name is Robert Massey from the Royal Astronomical Society, says, put simply, easy for him to say, tides on Earth are the result of bulges in water caused by the gravitational forces of the moon. So essentially, the moon pulls on water on one side of the Earth, but on the other side, where the gravitational forces are weaker, the water bulges in the opposite direction. So you have like the moon over here, and then there's the Earth, and you sort of have these two bulges. And pretty much all spinning things in space want to make bulges. Like if you think about pizza dough, that pizza will spin out like a bulge. So those bulges rotate around the Earth with the moon, and so we have these sort of two tides as they go around twice in a day. So that's really all about tides. This is really all that I wanted to talk about. I just wanted to sort of remind you guys to be thankful for the moon. Like we're thankful for the sun for all of the solar radiation, but without like the moon's complex interactions with Earth and its little pushes and pulls and sheltering us from a whole lot of asteroids, we might not be alive at all. So next time you see the moon,